If you feel that something is changing quietly, almost imperceptibly, yet at the same time inevitably, know this: you are not imagining it. There are moments in history when all of reality seems to hold its breath before a great shift, and that is exactly what we are living through now. It is not the end in the common sense. It is the vibrational closure of everything that no longer sustains who you have become. It is the exact point where transformation stops being a possibility and becomes a calling. The chosen always sense this moment before everyone else. They notice that the world no longer responds in the same way, that cycles repeat more quickly, that time seems to tighten at its edges, as if it were being bent by something greater. These signs announce that the old timeline is collapsing and that a new structure is forming around those who have already awakened to their higher identity. Much is said about the 144,000, not as a literal number, but as a code of consciousness that activates those destined to uphold the frequency of change. These are the people who, even without fully understanding, feel as though they have been prepared all their lives for this exact moment. They are the ones who recognize when the veil grows thin, when the energy accelerates, when the body reacts to the transition, and when the spirit calls for posture, focus, and courage. If you are here, you already know that something within you is being reorganized, and that is exactly what we are going to explore. What it means to recognize the end, to cross the fracture of the timeline, and to embrace the role of the true chosen one. I am George, and if this message makes your soul vibrate, follow the channel and walk with me. The journey is only beginning. There comes a moment in the spiritual journey when the end ceases to be a distant concept and becomes a felt reality. There are no explosions, no apparent chaos, no dramatic announcements, only a clarity so piercing that it becomes impossible to ignore. The true closure of any cycle always happens first within the energetic field, and only afterward does it reflect in the physical world. This is how the chosen recognize that something greater is moving, when everything around begins to feel artificial, repetitive, exhausted, as if life itself were signaling that the chapter cannot continue. This end is not destruction, but completion. It happens when the old energy no longer finds a place to manifest. Relationships naturally begin to dissolve. Opportunities that once seemed promising reveal themselves to be empty. Familiar paths become too narrow for the level of consciousness that is now expanding. The chosen perceive this with greater intensity because their spiritual sensitivity increases, allowing them to notice micro signs that others overlook. Every interaction, every coincidence, every repetition carries a subtle message. The previous timeline has ended. Some call this period the final test, and that is exactly what it is. Life begins to present repeated versions of the same situations, almost as if asking, "Have you learned? Are you ready to act according to who you've become?" These rapid repetitions serve not to punish, but to confirm. A soul that has evolved reacts differently. A soul that repeats the past rebinds itself to it. The signs of the end always appear in sequence. You may notice everything accelerating. People appear quickly and leave quickly. Challenges show up one after another. Decisions must be made without hesitation. This happens because when a timeline is about to collapse, it attempts to organize its last loose ends. Nothing is random. Acceleration is the final movement before the leap. And it is within this context that the chosen, symbolically linked to the code of the 144,000, begin to awaken to their higher identity. This number does not represent quantity but frequency. It is a vibrational pattern activated in souls that have reached the spiritual maturity required to transition to the new reality. These individuals no longer fit into ordinary patterns of behavior. no longer conform to the world's logic, no longer manage to live in superficiality. Their perceptions expand, their sense of purpose intensifies, and their intuition starts directing them away from everything that does not resonate with their mission. The old timeline dissolves when the chosen one finally understands that they can no longer behave like the version that inhabited that space. It is a deep rupture, not emotional, but vibrational. The old energy cannot sustain the new identity, and the new identity no longer feeds on the old patterns. That is why the end is so perceptible to those who have already awakened. The collapse becomes obvious. The feeling of displacement grows. Coincidences multiply. The body reacts. The spirit insists. The mind tries to keep up, but knows it stands before something beyond logic. The end is not a threat. It is an invitation. And those who recognize that invitation have already taken the first step toward crossing the rupture of the timeline. When the old timeline begins to collapse, an inevitable phenomenon emerges. The call for you to inhabit the identity that has always been yours, but which is only now mature enough to surface. The chosen do not cross the end with words, they cross it with posture. The new reality does not open for those who talk about change, but for those who embody it. And it is precisely at this point that the tests become more intense. They do not come to confuse you, but to align you. Nothing that appears at the end of the cycle is random. Every encounter, every decision, every discomfort, every coincidence acts as a mirror, asking, are you acting as your old self or as your higher self? If you are stepping into the role of spiritual leader, situations will arise to verify whether you truly act as one. If you carry the archetype of the divine masculine, experiences will appear demanding strength, clarity, boundaries, and integration. If you embody the divine feminine, circumstances will arise that test your intuition, receptivity, depth, and self-worth. The tests are not about punishment, but vibrational confirmation. The timeline only opens when you vibrate at its same frequency. These rapid experiences often involve distractions, trying to pull you back into old versions of yourself. Invitations that may seem advantageous, but compromise your integrity. Relationships that resurface, trying to reactivate patterns you've already transcended. Proposals that shine on the outside but drain you from within. All of it is orchestrated to reveal one single thing: which identity you are choosing now. Quantum physics explains this simply. You can only access the reality whose vibration matches your own. There is no quantum leap without inner alignment. There is no new cycle without a new identity. There are no shortcuts. Spiritual life does not function through appearances. It functions through frequency. And this process is individual. No one can cross this gate for you. No one can take this leap in your place. The path of the chosen is solitary because it is internal. The vibrational activation of the 144,000. This spiritual code representing awakened consciousness demands total focus, self-awareness, and responsibility. It is impossible to carry illusions into a higher timeline. They simply do not pass through the door. The crossing begins when you realize you are being invited not to react as before, not to seek validation as before, not to yield to the same temptations, not to repeat the same mistakes, not to hide behind the same excuses. The passage occurs when you decide, moment by moment, that the old version no longer governs your life. The tests do not come to destroy, they come to separate. To separate what belongs to the new from what belongs to the old. To separate the essence from the persona. To separate the spirit from conditioning. And when you begin passing these tests, something extraordinary happens. Time stops dragging you, and you begin to shape it. That is how the chosen cross the end and enter the new timeline. There comes a moment in the awakening of the chosen when material reality begins to feel like a poorly assembled stage play. Nothing fits quite right. Nothing sounds natural. Nothing works as it did before. It's as if there's a slight distortion behind everything, as though you were seeing the machinery instead of the illusion that once felt so convincing. This strange sensation is one of the first signs that the old timeline is dissolving, that you are seeing the world not as it appears, but as it is energetically. The third dimension operates through repetition, conditioning, routine, and predictability. It keeps the mind busy to prevent the soul from realizing that there have always been other possible versions of you and other possible timelines. So when you start noticing inconsistencies, repeating events, inexplicable behaviors, or situations that feel absurdly obvious, it's not bad luck, chaos, or coincidence. It's vibrational collapse. The old structure can no longer sustain the new consciousness. Many chosen ones describe the feeling of "this can't be real" when faced with events that seem too exaggerated, too symbolic, too theatrical. But this happens because when a timeline is about to collapse, it becomes caricatured. It exaggerates its own patterns so that you can no longer ignore them. It's as if the universe were saying, "Look closely. You don't belong here anymore." And with this collapse comes quantum expansion. Your spiritual senses begin to awaken. Your intuition becomes razor sharp. You perceive invisible patterns, sense energies you once missed, understand messages coming through symbols, synchronicities, and repeating numbers. It's as though the new reality were calling your name. Quantum physics, though it may seem distant from spirituality, explains exactly what you are beginning to live. Everything is frequency. Everything is vibration. Everything responds to the observer. When your consciousness changes, the scenery around you changes with it. When you align with your higher self, the 3D reality rearranges itself. When you stop reacting as your old version, the old structure loses strength and collapses. That's why, at this stage, you sense a dissociation between who you were and who you are becoming. You may feel as though you're living between worlds. You may feel that you no longer belong to the old, yet cannot fully touch the new. This is not failure. It is transition. It's the bridge between two frequencies. The old, still trying to pull you back, the new calling you forward. And it is during this period that the tests intensify. Life shows you repeated memories, old temptations, situations that used to trap you. But now they no longer serve. The old timeline tries to pull you in, but you already know you don't belong there anymore. It becomes uncomfortable precisely to ensure you don't return. The collapse of the old reality is not a tragic ending, but a liberation. It is the exact moment when awakened consciousness realizes it can choose the next timeline, not through will, but through vibration. And when the quantum reveals itself, the third dimension loses all authority over your life. You begin to understand that there has always been an invisible path guiding you. And now, it finally becomes clear. If there is one foundation that sets the chosen apart from all others, it is the deep understanding that the quantum leap is personal. It does not happen through proximity, inspiration, coexistence, or desire. It happens when the soul is mature enough to take full responsibility for its own frequency. It is not possible to enter a new timeline while carrying justifications, old beliefs, fears, or worn-out identities. The leap requires surrender, clarity, and courage. That is why, before a major vibrational change, life organizes the final cycles of tests, not to punish, but to purify, to remove everything that would prevent your ascension. This is where the repetitive 2-year cycles come in. The family patterns, mirrored relationships, recurring jobs, encounters that return. None of this is bad luck. It is all part of the spiral of existence. Each turn of the spiral condenses a version of you that still needs to be understood, released, or redefined. Life points out what you must transcend, and God shows, through contrast, what belongs to your next destiny and what belongs to the past. The quantum leap, in practice, happens when your response changes. When you finally act as the one you have become, when you see the test and do not fall into temptation, when you recognize the pattern and choose to break it, when you look the old cycle in the eyes and say, "I've learned." The truth is simple but profound. The timeline changes when you change. Every reality is sustained by your identity. If you still react with fear, guilt, or impulse, you are vibrating in the timeline you wish to leave behind. If you respond with stability, awareness, and presence, you are vibrating in the world you wish to enter. And that is why so few complete the leap. Not from inability, but from lack of surrender. Many desire the new life but refuse to let go of the old one. They want an elevated version of themselves, but won't remove the masks. They want abundance but cling to limitation. They want love but continue tolerating what wounds them. The quantum leap demands radical honesty. No mentor can cross the door for you. No external energy can perform the inner shift your soul must initiate. The chosen understand this. That's why they work silently, observe carefully, and walk with discipline along the path God designed. The old timeline only collapses completely when you abandon it vibrationally. And the new one only opens when you commit to it on every level: mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical. The chosen recognize that they hold a mission no one else can fulfill. And once they discover this, responsibility ceases to be a burden and becomes purpose. Much is said about the seal on the forehead, but few understand that it is not a physical symbol or a mystical stamp that appears magically. The seal is the vibrational mark of those who have awakened to their higher identity and definitively broken with the lower timeline. It is the energetic signature of those who have recognized the truth of their own soul and aligned with the frequency of inner enlightenment. The 144,000, therefore, represent a collective consciousness, a group of souls prepared to sustain the vibration underpinning the planet's transition. Not a literal number, but a spiritual pattern. Receiving this seal means you no longer operate under the rules of the ordinary world. It means you have cast off masks, fears, and imposed versions of yourself, choosing to return to who you always were before conditioning began. It means your mind is no longer guided by the noise of humanity, but by the pulse of spirit. This seal is not earned by social merit. It activates when the soul remembers who it is. It is linked to the clarity with which you perceive patterns, the ability to discern vibrational counterfeits, the strength to face shadow, and the courage to pass each test without deviation. And how can one recognize who already carries this seal? By how they move through the world. Silent yet steady, modest yet resolute, sensitive yet unshakable. The chosen do not crave recognition. They do not beg for validation. Their seal is noticed only by those who resonate on the same frequency, and ignored by those still trapped in density. That is why many of you have felt sudden separations, unavoidable endings, or ruptures that make no rational sense. This happens because the seal changes your energetic signature, and everything misaligned can no longer remain near you. The seal also brings responsibility. Once marked, you cannot live as you once did. Shortcuts, distractions, toxic cycles no longer fit. The soul knows when it is wasting energy and quickly realigns. This explains why so many chosen ones feel urgency, internal pressure, or the sense that they must take a stand. It is not anxiety. It is the vibrational call of purpose drawing near. At the same time, there is an invisible protection. The seal blocks external interference, closes old portals, and prevents dense energies from taking control over you. It is as though light inscribed your electromagnetic field with a message reading, "This one no longer belongs to the old world." That is why you survive things that would have destroyed anyone else. That is why certain doors closed precisely when they needed to close. The seal is the reminder that you are here to complete a cycle many cannot even comprehend. It is also the proof that you are already walking toward a future accessible only to those who have fully awakened to their essence. At this stage of the journey, the chosen enter a phase of intense testing. These tests are not punitive, they are revealing. They don't come to destroy you, but to show whether you have truly embodied who you claim to be. The old timeline tries to maintain its territory by sending distorted versions of everything you desire. Relationships that resemble those that once hurt you, financial opportunities that compromise your integrity, career paths that seem promising, but carry the vibration of your old self. All of this is part of the final filtering. The counterfeit always appears before the true blessing. It is the last verification from the old reality trying to hold you back. And it is so convincing that many fall, not out of malice, but from lack of discernment. The universe uses comparison and contrast to reveal which option resonates with your higher identity and which belongs to the past. That is why you must analyze everything with greater awareness than ever before. It's not enough to ask, "Does this seem good?" The real question is, does this reflect who I am now? The chosen always receive tests that strike their old weak points. Emotional dependency, the need for approval, haste, fear of scarcity, the urge to control. None of it arrives by chance. These are the leaks that must be sealed before the leap. And the closer you are to transition, the more intense the tests become, the shorter the cycles, the clearer the counterfeits. It's in these moments that many experience losses, separations, or abrupt endings. But none of this is random. God removes what you would not have the courage to release. He closes the doors you would hesitate to shut. He severs ties you have tolerated for far too long. All of it is part of the vibrational cleansing that prepares your ascension. When the collapse of the old timeline finally occurs, something extraordinary happens. The new identity begins to manifest, not as an idea, but as a presence. Your body changes, your posture changes, your voice changes, your boundaries strengthen, your energy becomes selective. You begin to act according to who you truly are, not who you were conditioned to be. And this change is not theoretical, it is felt. It touches every area of your life, like a silent wave that reorganizes everything around you. The new timeline is not a magical destination. It is a frequency that must be embodied daily. It manifests when you choose yourself with responsibility, honor your intuition, refuse to act below your vibration, and respond with maturity to situations that once threw you off balance. It is in that moment that the universe understands. He is ready. She is ready. You may notice bodily changes, back pain, tingling, pressure in the head, strange sensations after naps or meditations. These are not random. They are signs that your energy field is reconfiguring itself to sustain the new level of consciousness. Many report feeling weight between the shoulder blades, as if energetic wings were forming. Others feel electric currents running through the body, clear signs of vibrational activation. All of this is part of aligning with the new timeline. And along with this activation arises an inner silence that nothing can break. The mind loses the compulsion to react. The heart takes the lead. It is in this state that you finally understand that ascension is not something that will happen. It is something that has already begun. Your soul recognizes the path, and the body follows. The new timeline also demands discernment. You will realize that you can no longer mingle in environments that drain you, with people who fail to recognize your worth, or situations that no longer support your purpose. This withdrawal is not arrogance. It is vibrational protection. It is the universe ensuring that nothing interferes with the process you have taken lifetimes to reach. The chosen who reach this point feel an inner impulse to take a stand, create, teach, lead, or simply illuminate spaces through their presence. They know their frequency influences the environment, not the other way around. And that is how it should be. The new timeline requires people who live the truth, not merely talk about it. And in the end, it all comes down to one simple phrase. I am in the timeline that reflects my higher self. When you believe it, vibrate it, and act accordingly, reality changes. Not through magic, but through coherence. Reaching this point means you are already feeling, in some way, the movement of this new timeline touching your life. Nothing described here is theoretical. It details the actual processes the chosen experience when consciousness outgrows the old structure and begins to operate at the level of the higher self. Now the next step is to live this truth with intention and presence, allowing every decision to reinforce the path you have chosen to walk. Comment below. Which part of this journey did you not know was part of the transition? I truly want to hear from you. From